everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. I am in the fabulous show, my corner, and I have a great guest on the corner, a guest we've had before. Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, everybody. It's Steve Staley here. What's up?
How have you been since the last time we talked? Anything new and fabulous happened?
I have been doing well. I wish things were a little bit busier. I'm trying to think if there's anything new that's happened. I don't think there's much new that's happened, as is the same old stuff is just continuing to roll forward. There's been a Bleach movie that's coming out, and I know that I'm doing a Bleach video game on Friday, so Bleach seems to still be hanging in there tough. I just finished playing some incidental roles on a show called Takaishi, and other than that, I can't think of anything else that's too new.
Well, understandable. It seems like there's been a kind of a shift in the voice acting world, more on the video games lately. That seems like a really big focus.
Yes, and what's interesting is that a lot of the video games, of course, are based on anime, and so they've become equal in scope, in a way, to the series.
And those must be pretty fun because you get to do all the reaction sounds, and I wouldn't say there's as much of a story sometimes, but you get to kind of go a little bit crazier, it seems like.
In a way, that is true. Games are more work-intensive because there's so much material to get through, and when you're looking at voice acting from an industrial standpoint, there's work to be done in a certain amount of time. That's just the way it works because everything costs money. My time costs money, the studio costs money, the director costs money, so you have to get through it. And so in the moment that it's occurring, there you are with your face in the script really trying to deliver on line reading. There's not a whole lot of kicking back and discussing the meaning behind it. There's just a lot of do it like this, now do it like this, now do it like this, try this, 3 more, let me do one like this, change this line. No, that was too long, do it again shorter. It's work intensive. So that's what makes games require a little bit more focus.
Yeah, I would think so, and it's actually kind of funny. I had a few fans who really wanted to see you back on the show submit a few questions to me, and one of the questions that popped up is that a lot of video games, especially ones that have to do with anime, have like special moves. Is it more difficult to produce sound bites for special moves than during normal voiceover work?
Yes and no. What everyone I know does understand, but has to understand even further, is that so much more of it is in the control of the director than you might know, because what you hear is my voice. But what you don't hear are 17 takes of, do it higher, do it lower, it needs to be 1 second longer, it's got to growl, that sounded like getting hit, I need you to sound like you are hitting. And then, at that point, it becomes the editors. So I don't necessarily know, if you know what I mean. I just know how to make the sounds and call on different parts of my instrument to do what I'm told how to do. And then at that point, the coverage that I've provided is in the hands of the editor and the director. So I wouldn't say that it's harder to be that specific. I would say that the job requires more listening and reacting and doing what you're told. And then the specificity of the sound then becomes the prerogative of the editor.
That sounds really difficult. I think if I were in your shoes, I'd run out of different ways to say a line.
No, you wouldn't. What I like to say to my classes, even though this is going to sound funny, is the truth is it's not that hard of a job, and once you get good at it, you know, it's like getting good at any job. You get good at it. So I've developed a catalog of ways to make a lot of different sounds, and I've watched TV, and I understand, and I practice. I get to practice doing it every day at work, not just on anime, but the other things that I do, looping and commercials. They all require the same set of skills, and frankly, there's the set of skills that I've been working on since I was a little kid. So it's not as daunting as it might seem at first glance.
I can understand that. And actually, one thing we did never get to touch upon the very first time you were on were your classes. Could you explain a little bit about those?
You mean like where I teach and stuff like that?
Yeah, like what they entail.
Well, there's two things. There's taking classes, of course, and then a few years ago I was at an audition for a commercial at a casting agency called Kalmanson and Kalmanson, and one of the owners, the casting director, Harvey Kalmanson, asked me if I'd ever thought about being one of their teachers, and I really hadn't. And he said, well, let's check it out, and I ended up becoming one of their teachers, and really that's teaching commercial acting technique, how to act in radio commercials and TV commercials. But the beauty of that from having been a teacher is that I get to reinforce my skills while teaching it to other people, which is part of what I said to you in the question, which is that you just get good at it. And one of the ways you get good at it is teaching other people how to do it, and it just reinforces my skills.
And it helps, I would think, because, you can teach people not to make, some of the mistakes that you might have made in the beginning, or you can teach people things that you believe are the fundamentals that helped you.
Absolutely. And then, of course, teaching is a process anyway, so you just try to communicate as much as you can in a given amount of time and hope that people get it for the money that they spent to take the class. And then, of course, on the other side of that is acting class. I still take acting class every week, not a voiceover class, not a cartoon class, but an acting class, learning scripts and memorizing scenes and doing scenes from TV and movies, or singing songs and taking songs from musical theater and singing them and getting a critique and working on them with other people. It's important to keep your skills active. You can't. Acting is, in a way, athletic. You have to keep your skills going. If you let your skills atrophy, then you're not as good at your job. And so for me, acting class and voice lessons, singing lessons and stuff like that are important parts of keeping my skills sharp.
And now I think that's really interesting that you clarified that they were acting, because I think a lot of fans sort of misconceive the fact that voice acting is fundamentally acting. A lot of fans immediately think they can be a voice actor, but they don't think they have to act at all. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
It's an interesting thing. Even people out here in LA, they say, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I do voiceovers. And then they say a lot of times, oh, do you do real acting? And I know what they mean, and I'm not insulted, but they are taking for granted the fact that in order to make a grunt sound, even though it's only a grunt sound, requires a certain kind of acting. You have to know how to act it out. And then on top of that, of course, are playing the roles, how to build a character, how to play something that's not superficial, how to try to find depth, how to connect with the parts of yourself that communicate point of view and emotions in order to tell a story. It's acting, and a lot of people don't quite think of it as acting. And by acting, I mean being in plays, doing movies, singing songs in front of people, the usual, all the Glee stuff.
And it's funny to me because it seems like there's also a lot of technique that you need to know with voice acting. It's not just, oh, I can do funny voices. Like, I go to my mom all the time and try to explain, what I do on a day-to-day basis, and she's like, well, I can do funny voices. And I'm like, you're not quite getting it. You just so
Right.
that's something that I see a lot.
Study. Exactly. I'd say it's cumulative study.
And is there a specific technique that maybe you've learned that you would say is a staple of yours?
No. I would say continued study. You just continue to learn about how to use your instrument and call on the parts of it that you need to call on to service the story that you've been hired to participate in telling. What people mistake is when you watch TV or you watch a cartoon or whatever, the actor is out in front. It's the actor who you see. That's why actors get paid the most money, because ultimately it's me who you're hearing. Ultimately it's me who you're seeing. However, that is the tip of the iceberg. And from your point of view of doing acting as a job, there's a lot more going on. Like I've referenced already, the director, the other people, you're using your skills to service the story as the director sees it. I don't ever get to service a story as I see it. I only service a story as the director sees it and asks me to participate, you know? So there's a lot of what goes into it that you don't see when it's finished. What you see when it's finished is me.
Exactly, and people don't really get to see how you guys essentially work as a big unit together.
Right. I remember one time, before I quit reading anything that was posted on the internet, I read some critical stuff. And I remember specifically what the person was criticizing was something that I had been directed into from the director's vision. And I remember, I sat there with a chip on my shoulder for a minute because I had been Steve Staley had been criticized publicly on the internet for choices that, because I was in the room when it happened, I know I didn't make. That they were choices that I had been directed to, and I kind of had to just shrug my shoulders and go, look, this is the name of the game, man. If you want to put it out there, you got to be willing to take what comes from it. But it's an interesting perspective that it's not really my vision. It's my skills as an actor, as a mimic, as a singer, as a whatever that are being called on. The other parts are the prerogative of management, producer, director, so on and so forth. It's their show. It's not my show. They've asked me to be in it.
And the internet has kind of made it so people can criticize to their heart's content. And it's funny because I believe not a lot of people understand everything that goes into it. I still feel that despite, talking to many voice actors in the industry, I don't fully understand because I haven't been in your shoes. And is there, I'm just curious, is there one thing that perhaps you'd want to tell people who are criticizing vocal work?
No. It's cool. I mean, I get it. The nature of the internet and everything, people like to talk and discuss, and it is what it is. But there's nothing I can say that's going to make people perceive it any differently, because ultimately, whether it's my choice or the director's choice, the reality is the end product is the end product, and people are free to say about it and think and feel about it whatever they want. That's the way it is.
That's true, freedom of speech. And I think on that note, we'll take a very short break, but don't worry, I'm not going to chase my guest away. We're going to serve him a sandwich and some coffee, and keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan. Everything you want, and nothing you don't.
Swan Dive. Hello, fanatics. Look at the fan. Now back to me. Now back at the fan. Now back to me. Sadly, you're not with me, but if you stop using MSN and Yahoo and change to our IRC chat, you could be with me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're in our IRC with the fans of things you like. Look in our chat. Now back at me. I have it. It's a mod kicking those two people you hate. Look again. The mods are now maids. Anything is possible when you use our IRC chat and not a messenger. I'm on a wolf's.
Hey everybody out there, we are still here in the corner on 91.8 The Fan. I still have my guest here. Would you like to show us the sign of life?
I am living.
Well, that's always a good thing. We want our guests to be living and well. Just a little. But I was kind of curious because we really didn't get to talk about it last time you were on, but we know that you were in Vampire Night as the character Shiki, correct?
Right, Shiki. I like that character mostly, and I think what I might have told you is, for me, it all comes down to the reality of it. That character involved hardly any screaming, and I loved it.
So he was a pretty calm guy.
Totally calm. I didn't even have to raise my voice to say my lines. It was awesome.
Now for screaming, I assume you really have to take care of your voice.
Well, you would assume that, but I don't know what taking care of your voice really is, other than the obvious, drinking a lot of water and resting it and stuff like that. But screaming is screaming, no matter how well you take care of your voice. When the call is the guy is dying, it has to sound like dying. And dying, it doesn't take care. When someone dying isn't taking care of their voice, there's skill involved. That's why singing lessons are important. You got to know how to use your voice. But the bottom line is screaming, and it is pretty much never fun.
Understandable. So you didn't have to be a screaming banshee vampire. That's always a good thing.
Loved it. Totally loved it. Maybe I had to scream here and there, but I got off easy. like I said, I didn't even have to raise my voice playing that character, and he was a fun character to play. There was some latitude with his attitudes and points of view and the style that his lines got said, and what makes dubbing hard is that I've got to give a performance in the context of someone else's performance. So the timing and all of that, and that character was easier to do that than some.
Yeah, I hear with the dubbing specifically, since you mentioned singing lessons, it's a lot easier to dub if you have some sort of musical background.
I suppose that's true, because what you're dealing with and constrained by is synchronization. And a lot of times, if you can't multitask in your mind how to synchronize with your mouth and at the same time do acting, because those are two separate things, then what you get is a cardboard performance. And it is rather musical.
And also you have to read at the same time, too.
You have to look up and down from the page. Or what I've noticed has happened to me over 10 or 12 years of doing this is I get good at memorizing I can memorize 1 or 2 sentences at a time.
Well,
so
that's always a good thing.
I read it, I memorize it, and then I look up and watch the screen while I'm acting. I mess up my fair share of times, too. Everybody does.
Well, I'm a little bit curious. Is there anything that you know now that you would have liked to know in the beginning when you started dubbing?
Oh, man, I'll have to think about that.
Do. No, I'm kidding.
No, you know what? Not really. What you see is what you get. Like I said earlier, acting is pretty industrial. It's a labor job. It's not an idea job. You know what I mean? It's physical labor. And I'm not exaggerating. I know it's not laying brick, but it is physical labor. You have to be there and do it. It's not ideas. And so not really. There's nothing that I wish I had known that I didn't know, and so forth. No, I can't think of anything.
Well, that's good. That means that you definitely had some great experiences, I would assume.
That's true. And I know a lot of great people, and a lot of it I fell into anyway. I was already doing voiceovers, but you meet people, people recommend you for something or say, hey, I'm doing this, come here and try that, and the next thing you know, you work with the people who you've created relationships with, and that's sort of where I'm at.
And now I'm kind of curious for the fans out there, because I know a lot of fans are really happy to hear from you, but is there any place where they can keep updated on what you're doing? Do you do the social media kick at all?
You know what? I am on Twitter, but I don't think I've tweeted even once. And I would say IMDb, but I don't think their information is very current. So the answer to that would be 98.1 The Fan.
Woo! We are the guys in charge here. All right.
As far though as anime goes, I already said I don't have a lot new going on. Bleach is still going. Naruto hits up at the game every now and then, and I played a role in Kakaishi. And gosh, that's it really. I've done dubbing on some foreign films, and then of course I have a few commercial accounts where I'm the voice of products, but that's not really anything you can tune into. And then some video games, and you'll hate me, but I can't remember the names of the video games. I know that sounds like a lie, but the title doesn't have anything to do with when and where. And once I get there, the job is the same. It doesn't matter what the title is. So often I forget the title of a game once I've been in it.
Well, that's understandable. I know for video games, you record it 6 months ago, and then the video game finally comes out, and you're like, oh, I can talk about that now?
There's all sorts of non-disclosure things and so on and so forth. But the bottom line for me is once I am at work, the job is the same no matter what I'm doing. I'm standing there at a microphone, servicing this director's desire for this project.
Well, make sure to keep us updated on anything else you have coming up, and we'll make sure to let all of our fans know about that.
Absolutely, I will. Maybe this will spur something, and I'll have cool news to share shortly.
Oh, we would love that. And now I'm kind of curious. I know you don't really do the convention thing so much, but is there any ever events that you might plan on going where somebody can stalk you in real life? Hopefully in a nice way.
Yeah, I do. I think that I've been to Anime Expo a couple of times. Sometimes I go to Comic-Con, but that's gotten so large and requires driving down to San Diego. I know that's not that big of a deal, but or even LA Convention Center. But sometimes I do the things that are local here, and you never know. If I was invited somewhere cool, I might go and have some fun over a weekend.
And then you'll probably get a lot of glomps and fangirls and possibly fanboys. Ching!
That's right. Get me some. Maybe I'll show up in a costume.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Oh gosh, I was trying to make a great joke, but I couldn't think of any outrageous costume.
I think Fate had a pretty outrageous costume. His legs were kind of all covered in like props. That would be ridiculous to do, I think.
Right. Is that the character from Star Ocean?
Yes, Star Ocean.
Oh, see, I did know. Fate Rheingold or something. Yeah, that would be a cool costume. I can't imagine showing up at cosplay, though, as myself. Can you imagine me dressed up like Neji? That'd be ridiculous.
Still, it would be a lot of fun. I think the fans would appreciate it.
Yeah, it could be good for a laugh, that's for sure.
And now I'm kind of curious, is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners out there?
Just thanks for being interested. Thanks for caring and enjoying the medium and the version of storytelling that is anime.
And they were definitely very excited to hear from you. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we could check up on you. I know that it's been a while since we talked, and this time I know it recorded. Yee!
That's right. We had a technical issue last time. Well, sweet. I'm glad to be invited, and thanks for having me.
Of course, and for anybody out there who might have missed any of this interview, you don't want to go too far because it'll be up on the website within the next few days, so keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan, everything you want and nothing you don't.